So we are talking about a heat exchanger. So our today's topic is application of first law of thermodynamics to a heat exchanger. Now, what is a heat exchanger? Our mind. So what is a heat exchanger? See, normally in a heat exchanger there are two fluids. Okay, there are two fluids. One could be hot fluid. There are two fluids. One could be hot fluid, and other is the second one is the cold fluid. So what happens? They are used for transferring heat between themselves. Okay, so hot fluid gives its heat to the cold fluid. So hot fluid gets converted to cold, becomes cold, whereas the cold fluid becomes hot. Okay, this is what happens in case of heat exchanger, that one fluid loses heat whereas the other fluid gains heat. Now you can see the diagram here. This is a heat exchanger. This is a heat exchanger. Now in this case, what is happening? There is steam here. The temperature of the steam could be say 150 degrees Celsius, and its pressure could be say, if I say 7 bar, or it could be low also. Not necessarily 150 degree or 7 bar. It could be low also, and it is entering into this heat exchanger here, and its mass flow rate is m1 dot. Its enthalpy here is h1. Okay, and simultaneously from the left side of the heat exchanger we have the cold water. Its mass flow rate is m2 and its enthalpy is h3. So it is entering, so it is cold, so I can say its temperature could be, let us assume that 20 degrees Celsius. So you know heat always flows from high temperature to low temperature. So what will happen? This cold water is passing from this tube actually. This is a tube actually through which the cold water is flowing, and the steam is entering. This you can say is a shell. Okay, it's a shell. Shell has a high volume actually, and in between we have the tubes actually through which the water is passing. So it's cylindrical in shape. If you will see the side view, then the side view would look like something like this. See, this is the tube through which the water is passing, and here through this tube it is the steam which is flowing. Here we have the steam, and here we have the water. So what is happening actually? The water is at low temperature, whereas the steam is at high temperature. So steam will lose its energy, or steam will lose its temperature and gives its heat from here to the tube, to the water flowing in the tube. Okay, and it will come out as water here at low temperature, which could be, let us say, 50 degree Celsius. Now the mass flow rate initially of the steam was m1 dot. So same mass flow rate is coming out. Earlier its enthalpy was H1. Now it is coming out of the heat exchanger at an enthalpy H2. Whereas if you talk about the cold water, its temperature was 20 degrees Celsius, mass flow rate was m2 dot. So it is coming out as hot water now, and its temperature could be 40 degree Celsius. Okay, and its mass flow rate remains the same, m2 dot. You can see it here, it was m2 dot earlier also. Here also it is m2 dot, but the enthalpy changes to h4. Okay, so enthalpy, because the temperature of the water has increased, so its enthalpy will also increase. That means h2 is sorry, h4 is greater than h3, and in a similar way we can say that h2 is less than h1. This is for the water, and this is for the steam. Okay, so that is how the heat exchange is taking place. Somebody wants to join, just wait. Yes. Okay. So I hope this part is clear to you. So let us proceed further. So this was about the heat exchanger, how it functions actually. Okay. Now let us see this diagram once again. Okay. Once again, somebody wants to join. Just wait. Okay. So now what we can do is we can apply the first law of thermodynamics for an open system to this particular heat exchanger. So this is the equation which we are going to apply for this particular heat exchanger. Now the equation says delta Q minus delta Ws is equal to dH plus dKe, which is basically change in kinetic energy, and this is change in potential energy term. Now when we talk about heat exchanger, we say that the heat is being exchanged between these two fluids, and no heat is going out of the heat exchanger or no heat is coming into the heat exchanger. Okay, so that is basically the condition. So the process is actually adiabatic. Why? Because no heat is entering the system and no heat is leaving the system. Only heat is being exchanged between the two fluids, which are shown here to be as steam and water. Okay, these are the two fluids which are being used in this particular case in the heat exchanger. So let us try to apply this equation to considering these conditions, and let us see what is the equation that we are going to get here. Now once again here, this equation, the top equation was written in the differential form here. Okay, it is the differential form of the steady flow energy equation, and we have converted after integration. This is the equation that we get. It is Q dot Cv, that is heat transfer rate which is entering or leaving the control volume. Then this is the work transfer term. Then this is the mass flow rate, and this is the change in enthalpy. E is for exit, I is for inlet, and here we have the kinetic energy change. Here we have the potential energy change. So these are the five terms that come into picture in case of a steady flow energy equation. Now, when we see at this particular equation, just try to see it here. You can find that there is a single term of the mass flow rate. It's a single mass flow rate. Means when we derived this equation, we said this is this control volume which we considered. This is the control volume which we considered. We said that certain amount of the mass is entering here, which is m dot, and there is certain mass which is leaving outside. It is also m dot. So there was only one entry here, and there was only one exit here. Okay, no other thing was there in this particular case. But now if you see this heat exchanger, we have two entries. One entry is for the stream here, other entry is for the cold water here. Similarly, we have two exits. One exit, it is here for the cold water, and this is the exit for the water which is being condensed because of the from the steam actually. So there are two entries and two exits. So we have to modify this particular equation which we have written here. So this equation is to be modified. Now how we can modify it, let us see in the next slide. Now we don't have to do much change in this actually. We can just add this term which shows the sum of all such mass flow rates which are either entering or leaving the control volume. So this sigma actually is for I equal to 1 to n actually. So this is only showing the sum of all such mass flow rates which have uh, enthalpies entering and leaving, kinetic energy of entering and leaving fluids, and potential energy of entering and leaving fluids. Okay, so we can now use this particular equation for a number of flows which are entering and leaving actually. Now as I said that in this particular case there is heat transfer which is taking place between the fluids only. One fluid is losing the heat, whereas the other fluid is gaining the heat, and there is no other heat transfer. So we say that the heat entering or leaving the control volume is zero. So it is actually not there in the process. So I can cross this Q dot CV. Then there is no shaft in the system. A heat exchanger is only exchanging the heat. There is no shaft, and you know it is the work which is only available at the shaft of the system. So when there is no shaft, there is no work transfer. So this term is also not there. So this is zero. So I can cancel it here also. Next, what I can do is I can assume that the changing changes in kinetic energy and potential energy are negligible. So when I say they are negligible, I can neglect those two terms of the changes in kinetic energy and potential energy. So this term and this term, they have been neglected, being we are considering them to be small, actually neglected because they are small. Okay, so we are left with only one single term, and that single term is, you can see here, this is what is left here. Okay, so from here you can see this is the equation that I got, and on the right hand side we have this term equal to 0. So this is the equation now. Now this equation is to be applied to this particular heat exchanger. So let us proceed to the next slide. Now you can see it here. Now once again, what I will do, I will write the previous equation, which is sigma mi with I varying from 1 to n into He minus Hi equal to 0. Okay, so this is the equation. So let us see how to write this. So first of all, let us consider m1 dot. M1 dot. So where is m1 dot in the diagram? M1 dot relates to the steam. So this is state point 1. So it is the entry. And for the steam, when it is getting converted to the water, this is the state point 2. This is the exit. Okay. And at exit, the enthalpy is H2, whereas the enthalpy of entry is H1. So you can see it here. The first term stands for the value of entering enthalpy, exit enthalpy. So exit enthalpy is H2 here. So here I am writing H2 minus H1, which is the entry point. Now sigma means sum. So I have put a plus sign here. Plus, now we can take the second mass flow rate. The second mass flow rate is for the cold water M2 dot, and its enthalpy is H3. This is at entry, and H4, this is at exit, and the mass flow rate is same. So here I take the mass flow rate M2 dot, and here exit enthalpy is H4, whereas the entry enthalpy is H3. I stands for entry or inlet. So this is the final equation that I get. Now I can uh, remodify it, and what I can do is I can write it in a simpler manner. I can write energy entering the heat exchanger. Now let us try to understand what is the energy entering the heat exchanger. So what are the two streams with which the energy is entering into the heat exchanger? Let us try to understand that. First, it is the steam. So this is the entry point for the steam. The mass flow rate is M1 and the energy entering is H1. So this could be the first term here. So you can see here, I am writing M1 dot H1. And the second term, which is entering the heat exchanger, is this one, cold water, with the mass flow rate M2 and enthalpy M3. So this is the M2 dot H3. And similarly at the exit, this is the mass flow rate M1 dot for the steam, and H2 is its enthalpy at exit, plus M2 dot H4. This is for the cold water which gets heated. So now you can see here what is it saying. It is energy leaving the heat exchanger, and this one was the energy entering the heat exchanger. So it's very easy to write this equation. We may not have to use the steady flow energy equation. We can directly write it in a simple manner, that energy which is entering the heat exchanger is equal to energy which is leaving the heat exchanger. So what I can do, I can put a equal to sign here. So energy entering into the heat exchanger is equal to energy leaving the heat exchanger. Okay, so it is written in the next line, we could have directly used first law of thermodynamics, that is conservation of the energy principle, by writing energy entering is equal to energy leaving. So once again I have written this same equation here with these two terms. First of all I have written, because this is the energy entering, so I have written it here, and that is equal to energy going out, which is written on the right hand side. Okay, so I could have written this equation directly also. Any questions? Okay, so let us proceed further. Now I am going to discuss about the throttling process. Now, throttling process, what is throttling actually? So let us first of all read the definition of the throttling. Throttling is a throttling is an expansion process of a fluid through a narrow restricted opening. Now this fluid could be gas or liquid under adiabatic conditions in a zero work output device. So let us read this once again. First term is an expansion process. So first term is expansion process. Throttling is an expansion process. Expansion means that the pressure at exit will be less than the pressure at inlet or entry of a fluid. So what is the meaning of fluid? Fluid stands for either a gas or liquid. So I hope this is clear. Through a narrow restricted opening. Narrow restricted opening means there is some hurdle in the flow of the fluid. Okay, for example, if there is a pipeline and I have some obstruction here, okay, I make some obstruction here like this, so that the area of the flow which was from here to here is now reduced to smaller one. So it's a sort of restriction, or it's a narrow restricted opening. Okay, under adiabatic conditions, when I say adiabatic conditions, you understand that the value of q dot will be equal to 0. That is the condition. In zero work output device, zero work output device means that the value of wcv is equal to 0. So this is how we are defining the throttling. Now the question arises, uh, can we think of any application in our home where we could have seen this process of throttling? Can anybody think of it?
The Venturi of the carburetor.
The venturi of the carburetor. Yes, that is true. Um, then, if you talk about a simple example of the tap at your home, okay, through which the water is coming. So the tap has a, you can say it's a hand shut off valve actually. Okay, when you close it, the area is reduced. When you open it, the water starts coming with full flow. When you close it, the flow rate of the water actually increases. So it is a similar, it is the process of throttling which is taking place in a tap through which the water comes actually. So here I have drawn a sketch to show the process of throttling. This is the sketch actually. Okay, so this is the, you can say this is the area of cross section which is equal to a, and this area of cross section is here at this particular point, and here the area is reduced, so it has been restricted. And this is the pipe which I have considered here. The velocity of the fluid which is flowing into the pipe is v1, its pressure is p1, and at the exit the velocity is reduced to v2, and the pressure is also sorry, the velocity changes to v2, but the pressure is reduced to p2. So it means p2 is less than p1, means expansion is taking place. Okay, so this is the process of throttling. Now once we have understood the process of throttling, our next task is to apply the steady flow energy equation to this particular process of throttling. So let us see it once again. So initial velocity is V1, final velocity is V2, initial pressure is P1, final velocity pressure is P2. And this I have already told you. And once again, this equation is already known to you, Q dot CV, W dot CV. This is change in enthalpy, this is kinetic energy term, this is potential energy term. So as I told you, there is no heat transfer. The process is taking place under adiabatic conditions. So I can say that this value is 0. Then I say there is no work transfer, this also goes. And then what I can consider is that the changes in potential energy are negligible. So I am considering that this term is negligible. Okay, this is negligible. So I can cut it also. So I am left with only these two terms only. So let us see the next slide. So once again, it's written here, whatever I have already explained it, assuming potential energy change to be negligible. These two I have already considered 0. So let us go to the next slide. Okay, so what we are left with? We are left with this part only. You can see it here. The previous slide is shown here. Okay, so this was not there. This is also going. This is also going. So we are left with this term, which is written here. Okay, it is m dot he minus hi v square minus vi square by 2, that is equal to 0. And I can rearrange the terms and I get h, yeah, rather than, yeah. Now, because at entry the enthalpy is h1, at the exit the enthalpy is h2, inlet the velocity is v1, and at exit the velocity is v2. So this is v1 square by 2 and this is v2 square by 2. So this is the final equation that I get in case of throttling. Now let us talk a bit more about it. See, we talked about the fluid actually. We talked about fluid, and I said the fluid could be either liquid or it could be gas. So first of all, I'm considering the fluid which is flowing is a liquid. Then what will happen? So what I can do is I can calculate the value of mass flow rate here. This is the value of mass flow rate, and mass flow rate is given by rho 1 A1 V1, and that should be equal to rho 2 A2 V2. So basically what I am considering is this is the first section, this is the second section, and here in between we have the restriction. Okay, so whatever is the mass flow rate which is entering here, same is the mass flow rate which is leaving here. So m1 m2, these are actually equal. So mass flow rates are equal. So I can write rho 1 a1 b1 is equal to rho 2 a2 v2. Now you tell me, is there any change in the area of the pipeline? No, there is no change in the area of the pipeline. And when there is no change in the area of the pipeline, then I can say A1, and if I say the area here is A2, because there is no change in the diameter, so A1 is equal to A2. So this cancels out from this equation. And when I say density, see, density is a weak function of pressure in liquids. Okay, so because there is not much change in the pressure of the liquids actually. Okay, so that even if that pressure is changing a lot of means, even if it is varying a lot in case of liquids, the density will not change much. For example, the density of the water is 1000 kgs per meter cube at 1 bar. Even if you will take 10 bar pressure, it may be 1001 kg per meter cube. So it's not a huge difference. So I can say that the density is also nearly same. So what I am left with? I am left with that V1 is equal to V2. So when V1 is equal to V2, if you see this particular equation, then the kinetic energy term will also cancel out because V1 is equal to V2. So I am left with only H1 is equal to H2. So that means enthalpy before the expansion is equal to enthalpy after the expansion, or enthalpy before throttling is equal to enthalpy after throttling. So basically in case of throttling, the enthalpy H remains constant. H remains constant. So there is no change in the enthalpy in a throttling process. Now this was about the liquids. Now let us discuss about gases. Now in case of gases, now what will happen in case of gas? I can write rho 1 A1 V1 is equal to rho 2 A2 V2. Now in case of gases, the pressure has a effect on density. So if the pressure P1 is greater than pressure P2, so the density here rho 1 will be large in comparison to rho 2. So we cannot cancel out the density. Yes, but we can cancel out the area part. Area can be cancelled out, but rho cannot be cancelled out. Okay, so it means V1 is not equal to V2. Okay, the velocity will not be varying actually. So the equation which we derived here, this equation number one, this was a general equation. This equation number was a general equation, and it was having both the terms h1 plus v1 square by 2, h2 plus v2 square by 2. This will hold good for liquid gases also. So this is why it is written here. Okay, because the velocity is not equal. Now what happens? Suppose if the change in density of the gas is not much, in that particular case, I can say that if rho 1 is approximately equal to rho 2, if it happens like this, then I can say, yes, in that particular case, rho 1 will cancel out with rho 2 and we will be left with V1 equal to V2. That means then we can cancel this value and this value of the kinetic energy term. And then in case of gases also, I can write H1 is equal to H2. Okay, now we have defined that enthalpy H is actually given by Cp into T. So here in place of H1 I can write Cp T1 is equal to Cp T2. And what is Cp? Cp is the specific heat of the gas at constant pressure. So this Cp and Cp will cancel out in case of gases, and I am left with T1 is equal to T2. So for a ideal gas during throttling, the temperature will also remain same. So in case of ideal gas, the temperature remains same in case of throttling. Moreover, enthalpy is also equal. H1 is equal to H2. Okay. So this much is clear. If any question, you can ask. Any questions you can ask.
Sir, sorry, could you just go over the throttling for gases? I got a little lost when you're talking about the assumptions we can make for gases.
Okay. Once again, let me show you. See, when we are talking about the gases, okay. See, in case of gas, what I will do, I will introduce one slide here. Just wait for a minute. Yeah, the slide is here. So the basic equation for throttling is H1 plus V1 square by 2 is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2. So for liquids, as I told you, this velocity is same. Okay, so for liquids, H1 is equal to H2. But when we talk about gases, once again we have this equation H1 plus V1 square by 2 is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2. And now when I calculate the value of m dot is equal to rho 1 A1 V1, that is equal to rho 2 A2 V2. Okay, and let us once again focus on this pipeline in which there is a restriction here. Okay, so the pressure of the gas here is P1 pressure of the gas here is P2. P2 is less than P1. So it means P1 is greater than P2. So it means when the pressure of the gas is more, density rho 1 will be greater than density rho 2. And here, this area of cross section of the pipe is A1, area of the cross section of the pipe here is A2, and both these area are same. So I can cancel out this area from this particular equation, but I cannot cancel rho 1 with rho 2. So I am left with rho 1 V1 is equal to rho 2 V2. Okay, it directly means that V1 is not equal to V2. So what I write, I say that yes, only I can write this particular equation in case of gases. Okay, so there is no change in the equation of throttling for the gases, which is actually given by H1 plus V1 square by 2, and which is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2. Means I will be using this particular equation only for gases. Now, consider a situation. If you consider a situation, if P1 is means say if the P value of P1 is 2 bar and the value of P2 is, let us say, 1.9 bar, when the gas is flowing through this pipeline, so I can say that these are nearly equal. So I will say that rho 1 is approximately equal to rho 2. When rho 1 is equal to rho 2, then in that particular case this can cancel out, and then I can say V1 is equal to V2, and then this term and this term will cancel out, and I will be left with H1 is equal to H2. But this is valid only when for the gas P1 is approximately equal to P2. Further, I say that enthalpy is given as CpT1, which is equal to CpT2. So Cp and Cp will cancel out. So for gases, I can say for a ideal gas, temperature is constant during throttling, along with the enthalpy is also constant. So for gases, both the things will be constant, with the only condition that there is not much change in the pressure. If there is large drop in the pressure in the pipeline when the gas is flowing through it, then this is the equation, that is H1 plus V1 square by 2 is equal to H2 plus V2 square by 2. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So now I have a numerical problem. So I will discuss the numerical problem with you. Now this is a very important numerical problem. So first of all, let us read the numerical problem. In a gas turbine, so we are having a gas turbine with us, okay? And in the gas turbine, the air is entering at 20 kilograms per second. So the mass flow rate of the air is actually equal to 20 kgs per second. It enters at 7 bar, this is the pressure, 500 Kelvin, this is the temperature, 5 meter per second, this is the velocity, and 6 meter per 6 meter elevation, that means it is the height of the turbine at the entry, and leaves at 1.2 bar, this is the pressure at exit, 300 Kelvin, this is the temperature at exit, this is the velocity at exit, and this is the elevation at the exit. So we are given with all sorts of data in this particular case. The heat lost by the air to the surroundings is 5 kilowatts. So we have been given that Q dot CV is equal to minus 5 kilowatt. So it's written here, it is shown here because it's minus, that means it is leaving the turbine actually. So if I am writing 5, it automatically means that it is going out. But here when I am writing, I am just writing 5 kilowatt because I am showing the direction out or here. So when the direction is outside, it means it's negative. So I need not to worry about it. Okay. So let us see this next slide. Once again, here I have written all the data which I have discussed with you. Okay. So this is the inlet. This is the inlet point, and here you can see the elevation is 6 meters, and this is the, you can say, reference line. This is the reference line. So at exit at this particular point, not from here, at this particular point, the elevation is 2 meters actually. Okay, and this is the pressure, temperature, velocity, elevations, etc. All the values. This is QCV, and we have to calculate the value of power or work. Okay, this is to be calculated. So I hope the problem is clear to you. Now let us go for its solution. Now before I go to solution, I would like to tell you one thing. When we derived the equation, steady flow equation for a turbine, okay, this is the equation. Uh, this is the equation, steady flow energy equation. This is one of the ways of writing it. Okay, I said that in case of turbine, it's a adiabatic process, and we neglected this. Then we said there is no change in the velocity, we neglected this. Then we said there is no change in the elevation, we neglected this term. And we were left with only these two terms. Now, in the numerical problem here, we have been given everything. We are given with the Q value also. We are given with the velocities also. We are given with the elevation also. So it means because all these terms are given in the numerical problem, so we will have to consider them. But theoretically speaking, when we derived the equation for the turbine, we used only these two terms, delta W and DH, and nothing more than this. That was theory. Now we are doing a numerical problem. If in the numerical problem, the data is also given for velocity, elevation, and heat transfer, then we will have to consider that actually. So let us see. Now, I will tell you a simple way of calculating rather than because there is some complicacy here, so I will not let you know about that, but I will tell you that thing also. Now the question, this is the equation actually, QCV minus WCV is equal to m dot h. I can write h2 minus h1 because I am writing inlet with the subscript 1 and exit with subscript 2 plus m dot v2 square minus v1 square divided by 2 plus m dot g z2 minus z1. So this is the equation. Now let us try to see what is given to me in the data actually. Yes, I know that I have been given with the value of QCV. So this is known to me. This is what I have to calculate. Enthalpies, no enthalpy, this is not known to me. Yes, velocity is known to me. I know the values of the velocities. I know the value of the mass flow rate. V2 is known, V1 is known. The value of G is known, mass is known, Z2 is known, Z1 is not known. So what is unknown? This I have to calculate. And this is already not known to me, H2 minus H1. This is not known to me. I have to calculate it. I know that H is given by U plus PV. This is known to me. This is the formula for enthalpy, specific enthalpy. And if I have to calculate H2 minus H1, what I will do? I will write it is equal to U2 minus U1 plus P2 V2 minus P1 V1. Okay, is it clear? So that means I will have to calculate the value of the change in internal energy, and then I will have to calculate the product of pressure and volume at inlet and outlet and take their difference actually and add it in the change in internal energy. Then I will be able to get the value of H2 minus H1. Okay, this is one way of calculating the change in enthalpy. Now, do you know what is the working substance here in the gas turbine? It is actually air. And I just told you that H is given by CPT. During throttling process, I told you H is equal to Cp into T, and it is valid for a gas. So I can also calculate the change in enthalpy from the equation H2 minus H1 is equal to Cp T2 minus T1. So I can use this particular equation for calculating H2 minus 1, H2 minus H1, or I can also use this particular equation for calculating H2 minus H1. It is my uh, uh, mood. My mode means better, no doubt, is this one because it is easier to calculate. This would be difficult, but we will be using this equation when we have liquids, because in case of liquids this equation is not valid. This is valid for gas, not for liquids. Okay, it is not valid for liquids. For liquids I have to use this particular equation, that H2 minus H1 is equal to U2 minus U1 plus P2 V2 minus P1 V1. Okay. Okay, so what I can do is I can calculate the value of so I have used both the methods to calculate the value of H2 minus H1. So I know this equation, PV is equal to MRT, and when I take M on this side it becomes V by M, and V by M is the specific volume, so PV is equal to RT. So I can calculate the value of specific volume using this particular equation, RT1 P1. I know all the values. Okay, R for air, I already told you, this should be known to you. It is 0.287. We have used it earlier also, kilojoules per kg Kelvin. Now I am not writing the units here. So I know. So this value, this all values are known to me. So from here I have calculated the value of the V1. In a similar manner, I can calculate the value of V2 here. Okay. This is how I have calculated the value of V2. Okay, I have put all the values, T2, P2, R, all those values I have put. Okay, so the pressure is taken in kilopascal. If you remember it, yeah, I gave a question in the test also where you were to calculate the mass, so you have to use the similar units. Then once I have calculated V1 and V2, okay, how to calculate U2 minus U1? U2 minus U1 is given by CV into T2 minus T1, and the value of CV is 0.718. Temperature is already known to you, both T1 and T2, so you can always calculate the value of U2 minus U1. So once, yeah, you can see it here, I have calculated it here. Okay, this is the value of U2 minus U1, and I have calculated V2, I have calculated V1, and P2 and P1 are already known to me. I have put those values here, here. Okay, and then after doing all the calculation, the answer comes out to be minus 201 for the value of H2 minus H1. This is how I have calculated, and this is a difficult way. Rather than doing this, I would have calculated H2 minus H1 directly from the equation Cp T2 minus T1. The value of Cp, this you should always remember for air, 1.005, T2 is 300, minus T1 500. So once again you get the value minus 201 kilojoules per kg. Okay, then the next thing is to calculate the change in kinetic energy. This is the kinetic energy term. Why I am showing you here? Because it is V2 square minus V1 square. So it is, this velocity is 7, this velocity is V1 is 5, and when you see the units here, it is meter square per second square. Okay, whereas the unit of H2 minus H1 is kilojoules per kg. So you cannot add both the units because they are not the same units. You can say that one orange plus one orange is two orange, but you cannot say one orange plus one apple is equal to two orange or two apples. Okay, so you can add similar things. So you cannot add meter square per second square in kilojoules per kg because they are not the consistent set of the units. So what I have tried to do here is I calculated this value. This comes out to be 12 meter square per second square, multiplied here by kg, divided here by kg. So no change I have done. So this is equal to 12. I can write it as kg meter per second square into meter. And if you know this is mass and this is acceleration, and mass into acceleration is actually force, and force comes out to be Newton. So this term is actually Newton meter, and when you say Newton meter, it is actually joules. So the answer is coming out to be 12 joules per, yeah, the kg I have forgotten here. So kg, so it is joule per kg here. So joule per kg, whereas here it is minus 201 kilojoules per kg. So I have to convert this value in kilojoules. So divide by 1000 here. So it will become 0.012 kilojoules per kg. So this is very, very important. Then, okay, I have done it here. Now similar, if you will see here for the potential energy G Z2 minus Z1, G value is 9.81 meter per second square multiplied by, this is the difference of the elevation, once again meter. So once again the unit here is meter square per second square, and you know this is nothing but this is equal to joules per kg. So we will have to divide this value also by 1000. This is the answer which I am getting. So divided by 1000, so I will get this value of the change in potential energy. Okay, so next, this is the equation QCV. It is the heat transfer minus 5 kilowatt. So it is going out, so minus sign is taken here. Then I have put all the values. Mass flow rate minus 20, H2 minus H1 minus 201, change in kinetic energy 0.021, and this is the change in the potential energy. So then you can simplify, and the final answer, because the value of mass is in kgs per second, and all these terms inside they are in kilojoules per kg. Okay, so kg and kg will cancel out, and we have kilojoules per second, and kilojoules per second is kilowatts. Okay, so this answer will come out to be in kilowatts, which is 4022.61 kilowatts, and then you can divide it by 1000, and the answer comes out in megawatts. So this is the final answer of the power which is being produced in the gas turbine. Any questions? So it's a question which have number of things to think, to ponder upon. Okay, if you can do this question, then you can apply this knowledge to other questions also. So I will say that I have already sent you the PK Nag's book, so you can see the 5th chapter and try to solve the numerical problems, the example problems actually. Okay, so do that.
Okay, sir.